Hello there friends and welcome. For today's BG3 guide we have a very fun WILDHEART BARBARIAN that is the ultimate meat cleaver, as you'll easily be slicing and dicing through multiple enemies at the same time with your heavy hitting area of effect attacks that can go on and on and on. You'll have more than 12 attacks worth as an area of effect, and of course amazing single target potential as well for definitely around 8 plus entire attacks, and all stacked to the max with multiple sources of extra damage for those nice one-shots and tasty criticals. And the best part is, as early as the very first act, you'll already be able to become a Raging Hulk, tearing through multiple enemies at the same time. So without further ado, let us get into our Raging Barbarian build, first with character creation. When it comes to race, there's always a few different options, but they don't matter that much in the long run, so go with whatever you want. But Wood Elf or Wood Half Elf have extra bonuses to base movement speed, something always nice in any type of melee character. After all, you have to reach the enemies first before you can attack them. Or most importantly, Half Orc if you want the highest hitting critical damage possible, which can help you later on, even early, because of how easy it is to get the advantage mechanic with barbarians, which is of course the class we want. You'll have the easiest access to two of the most powerful mechanics in 5th edition D&D, advantage, and also 50% less damage taken from all physical damage, so long as you are raging. The advantage bonus will come at the 2nd level, great because of how early everything is. And as early as level 3 we'll get our multi-hitting cleaves, limited only by how many actions you have per round. As far as stats, if you want to be a true hulking meat-cleaving barbarian, we of course will want high strength, so 17 at character creation. Dump your charisma like any good barbarian. 10 wisdom is more than enough, just so you don't have penalties to wisdom saving throws, as you'll not get crowd controlled much. But you'll be deleting everything in one turn anyway soon enough. Intelligence also dumpable, we are a barbarian after all. Then 14 constitution is more than enough. You don't really need the maximum hit points possible with this build because of how powerful your offenses are. Plus by default you already have 50% less damage taken from melee anyways, the most common source. For the second most important stat, dexterity as usual, because you do want high initiative, so 16 dexterity and 14 constitution. And it's as always the same as to why high initiative. Do you want enemies getting the alpha strike on you, or do you want to delete them outright in the first turn before they can do anything? Even better for melee because you can take advantage of enemy positioning, so that you hit multiple ones from your cleaves. After they get their turn, chances are they'll just move all around the map, so it's not really the same. It's better to have them stacked as tightly together as possible for this type of build. And for the background, as always, anything that complements whatever skills you want your barbarian to have. Outlander is pretty fun because you get both athletics and survival. This way you can focus into perception and anything else you want. And just to show you this build can work with any race, I'll be keeping progression as a human from the 2nd level onwards, which is exactly when we get the extremely powerful Reckless Attack Barbarian feature. With this, all of your attacks, including the one you use to activate this, for that turn will come with advantage. It is the easiest source of advantage possible, a mechanic that will highly increase your chances of hitting the enemy and getting critical hits. Sure, enemies will have advantage against you as well for the next turn, but who cares? You have half damage taken from melee and ranged attacks because of your rage. Danger Sense meanwhile provides you advantage against dexterity saving throws for spells, traps and surfaces, which also helps you reduce damage taken, most importantly from spells, so it's not just physical damage resistance. At level 3 we get to select our subclass at last, and this time we'll be going with the WILDHEART Barbarian. First you get the ability to speak with animals for free, which is nice for the main character for some quests and fun dialogue. But most importantly, the Bestial Heart ability. While each of the animal hearts offer decent enough and unique benefits, the one we wanna focus on if you truly want to be a meat-cleaving machine is Tiger Heart, because it provides you with the unique cleave called Tiger's Bloodlust. So long as you are raging, you can attack up to 3 enemies at once with your weapon attacks, while also making them bleed. Not that useful because chances are the enemies will be dead anyways before they can bleed enough. But the ability to attack 3 enemies per action is extremely useful. Of course, if it's just a single target, it's not gonna do anything because you cannot stack it on the same enemy. But for that you have your normal attacks that also hit very hard with advantage. Honestly, it's an amazing ability, especially for how early you get it. Just do note that you cannot activate this and Reckless Attack at the same time, because Reckless Attack requires a normal attack first, but afterwards, all of your Tiger Bloodlust Cleaves will come with advantage. So simply attack the enemy once, and that's enough. For our feat, it's the classic for two-handed builds. Great Weapon Master. This way we'll get an extreme amount of extra damage added per strike, including per each hit of Tiger's Cleaves. While the -5 penalty to attack rolls might seem scary at first, it's not, because remember, you have the easiest time ever applying advantage on all of your attacks as a barbarian. And of course I also have a guide to the side here you can check on how to increase your attack rolls to the max. You have multiple sources. At level 5 you have your extra attack, which does work for more cleaves. And even extra movement speed as well, while not wearing heavy armor, which doesn't matter anyways, because if you equip heavy armor as a barbarian, you'll be blocked from rage. I'd rather keep our character as a barbarian for more levels, including level 6, because there's still some nice class benefits to acquire. For example, our animal aspect, not the animal heart, we already have tiger, now it's time for an aspect instead. Once again, there's plenty of good ones here depending on what you want to specialize your build further, but for a true cleaving barbarian, we wanna stack both the Tiger Heart with the Tiger Aspect, because against bleeding enemies, you'll get to apply your strength modifier twice to attack rolls. Kinda like a minor variant of the very powerful Tavern Brawler feat, except it's only for attack rolls and not damage. And later you can have as high as 27 strength with little investment even. When you combine advantage from our Reckless Attack with the aspect of Tiger, you will always hit enemies with higher than 90% chance just fine, even on Tactician mode, even against bosses. Sure, the enemies have to bleed first, but look, you'll always make them bleed without a save by just using your Tiger Cleave anyways. Level 7 provides you with another very useful benefit, Feral Instinct, which most importantly increases your initiative by a +3. I've already said many times how powerful initiative can be, especially since this build can't really afford the alert feat. With around 16 dexterity and the +3 from Feral Instinct, you will most likely always act before any enemy. Meanwhile, by remaining a pure barbarian at level 8 we get another feat. And for once, I want to pick something different. Savage Attacker. Whenever you make a melee weapon attack, you roll your damage twice and use the highest result. Because of how easy it is to stack multiple sources of damage on your attacks, and each of these extra sources will be rolled twice, including extra elemental damage, this can really help increase your damage on an average. Because unlike the normal fighting style for two-handed weapons, this will only count the highest result. Is this feat necessary? I mean, not really. You can go with anything else you want, including alert or get an ability improvement right now. I just don't think it's necessary because of our strength elixirs that set your strength to 21 or 27, but hey, it's up to you what you prefer now. You might as well keep to Barbarian for level 9 as well, because it's when you get the Brutal Critical feature. Whenever you roll a critical hit, you'll get even extra damage, and by the way, this does stack with the half-orc ratio bonus to critical hits, which is why I recommended them earlier. At this point you'll be close to Act 3, which is when you can achieve really enormous critical chance, even earlier for a barbarian because of the advantage mechanic. At level 10 you can pick a second animal aspect, I just don't think it's quite important, which is why I'll be multiclassing away from barbarian at last. Fighter of course is always amazing. You get to pick a fighting style, don't bother with great weapon fighting because we already have savage attacks. But of course, if you picked something else instead of it, choose great weapon fighting now. I'll be going with defense instead. The second level in fighter is what we really wanted it for, all thanks to the action surge, which of course means more cleaves, or more normal attacks. And well, we might as well get the last level into fighter, so we can enter the champion subclass for even higher critical range. And as I said, this character will stack not only critical range, but also further bonuses to critical damage. If you decided to build a pure barbarian instead, you would have another feat now, which can go in anything you want. And of course, instead of fighter, you can always multiclass into rogue for the thief subclass at level 3, so you get an extra bonus action. This way you can both rage as a bonus action and still retain, let's say, a mind flayer power or anything else you want to do as a bonus action for that turn. I'd rather fighter, however. And that's it for build progression. Alright, now let us cover gear for our mid-cleaving barbarian. For the helmet, ultimately Saravox for the highest critical range possible. After all, we do have many nice bonuses to critical damage, especially if you went with half orc. You can also go with the horns of the berserker for 1d4 extra necrotic damage on hit. I've tested both and found the extra critical range increase from Saravox a lot better. For the very early parts of the game, the haste helm can be quite useful even later, because, well, who doesn't want more movement? Especially since you can dash to multiple enemy packs and unleash your cleave at them for multiple strikes. While at the very least at the second act you could still go with stuff that enhances your critical, like the Dark Justiciar helmet or the Covert cowl. These require you to be obscured, and in a lot of battles you won't be, because you gotta melee and be close to the enemies. On the other hand, if there's no light source nearby, you'll be half obscured, thus the half full sun icon next to my character here, which is enough to proc the extra critical range increase, thus the shadowy effect around us. When it comes to armor, it doesn't matter much for this build. After all, you'll always have 50% less damage taken from all physical sources when raging. Early on, I'd just go with the Adamantine Scale Mail or any other armor that has damage reduction, because it will stack with your physical resistance, plus immunity to critical hits can be nice, or armors that enhance your initiative instead, because this way, when you're stacking initiative from 16 dexterity, gear bonuses, and the barbarian passive, you will 100% act before all enemies, even without the alert feat. Don't forget you cannot equip heavy armor without it blocking you from using rage. There's also the classic Bone Spike Garb later for 2 less damage taken from all sources. As far as gloves, later Helldusk is as always amazing for extra fire damage on hit. The more damage you're adding from extra sources, the stronger your multi-hitting cleaves will become, because only the base weapon dice damage will be halved, not the rest. But as early as Act 1, there's always the gloves of the underdog to force advantage whenever you are surrounded by 2 or more foes, which can help you overcome the limitation of having to attack first with the normal reckless attack to proc advantage. With Underdog, even your Tiger Heart Cleaves will already come at advantage. And during the second act you have Dark Justiciar Gauntlets for necrotic damage instead of fire. For boots, anything you want, I have the Disintegrating Nightwalkers here just for Misty Step if needed. Although chances are most of the time you'll have to use your bonus action to rage first, and after the first turn everything will be dead anyways. For amulets, eventually you can always go for the Amulet of Greater Health. I mean, you can acquire enormous hit points with it, I just don't think it's necessary. Because who cares about hit points when you're just destroying everything in one turn? Especially during Act 3, which is when you can find this in the first place. For most of the game, I'd much rather the classic Broodmother's Revenge for even extra damage on hit. For rings, the Caustic Band, once again for extra damage, and the Callous Glow Ring for the same purpose. And I'd much rather save the Risky Ring for someone else. After all, we can easily acquire advantage with our Reckless attack ability. And if you want guaranteed criticals, there's always the Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet or the Killer's Sweetheart Ring, plus the Luck of the Far Realms Mind Flayer power. Now let us cover weapons and consumables. For weapons, the ultimate weapon for any strength build is definitely Balduran's Giant Slayer. After all, you'll deal double damage from strength on hit, while the Giant Form ability per short rest is also amazing at increasing your cleave damage. However, it is Act 3 only for the earlier parts of the game. There's as always the classic Everburn Blade, lootable even as early as the prologue, for extra fire damage, or just dip whatever other weapon you want into fire. Ideally, you wanna go with two-handed weapons even early, because they all have the cleave property. Most of them anyways. that once again also lets you hit up to 3 enemies, except it's per short rest, unlike our Tiger Heart ability that can be spammed. But it can still help you early. And another favorite of mine as early as Act 1 is Jorgoral's Great Sword. All thanks to its Colossal Onslaught ability that lets you hit multiple enemies in a very big line. While it's only once per short rest, this weapon also has cleave, and when you combine it with your rages and your Tiger Heart cleaves, well, you'll never run out. Colossal Onslaught is also unique in that it does not reduce your base damage by half, unlike the normal cleave or the Tiger Heart one. Honestly, I would just keep this Great Sword until Act 3 for Baldurance. As far as ranged weapons, ultimately Deadshot as always to increase critical range, but earlier the classic Titan String Bow, because it allows you to apply your strength modifier and also dexterity to damage, and can be found very early. As for consumables, just go with the Elixir of Bloodlust early, for extra actions, which of course means more cleaves. But for Act 3, which is when you can find Baldurance Giant Slayer, I'd much rather the Elixir of Cloud Giant's Strength instead to set your Strength to 27, of course, for even higher damage. And as far as the lack of the extra action from Bloodlust, at this point you kinda don't need it anymore. You're just destroying everything on sight, with your cleaves anyways. Well, alright friends, so this was it from my Barbarian Meat Cleaver guide. If you found it useful as always, please be sure to like, subscribe, and also consider becoming a channel member if you can. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for watching and see you next time, friends.